So, back to Volume 1 of The Adventures of Susan MeeLing, Scuba Diver Extraordinaire, written by me, Reverend Susan MeeLing, Lady Dori, Belle, etc. This is Volume 1, Chapters 1 through 4, on page 167. So of those 35% of females in 2009, I am unaware of how many had been involved with scuba diving for themselves comparatively to those who were in a relationship when getting involved with scuba diving. It is difficult for me to think I would have been one of a few females who had gotten involved with scuba diving just for myself and not because of a relationship, though I do genuinely hope that with the scuba diving, there were other guys who were able to see the benefits for the headaches and migraines and stuff like that. Hopefully that was something that I was able to assist, because I know that it assisted me, but obviously, you know. So however, that does not discredit any female who has gone into scuba diving prior or since. I just found it to be a little bit weird now that I have thought about it, and at the time of when writing, because I thought that there were far more females than just myself who had gotten into scuba diving, and not for a relationship, but for themselves, and not for a trip, not for that sort of stuff. I mean, yeah, trips later on down the line, but like to just go scuba diving. That was a reason. So, also in reference to some ways of when I had joined the United States of America's Armed Forces, I signed the paperwork in March of 2000, and I knew that scuba diving was a part of the different aspects of what I had wanted to do in reference to the job. Because I knew that in order to, now obviously back in 2000, they didn't allow females, I learned that. But I knew that infantry or cavalry, as well as combat arms, there were certain jobs that in order to progress in those ... type of jobs, you had to have scuba diving as part of your specialties. And so I kind of figured, hey, you know, that I could do that. But maybe now in January 2020, or possibly when it was noticed that I had been scuba diving, because you have to go through certification courses, and those teachers have to register you, so through different, not just their own instructor stuff, but because I was a part of PADI, or still am by technicalities, part of PADI, P-A-D-I, Professional Association of Diving Instructors, that, you know, my name would be on all those registries. You know, each one of the different teachers, instructors that I had, as well as the PADI, because not all, I learned later that not all instructors were specifically PADI. They had different whatever schools that they had been a part of. So all of those schools would, you know, have that registration of me being in that training. So, but hopefully, you know, at that time when I had gone through all the different courses, the armed forces for the United States of America were able to be like, hey, look, you know, hi. I'm only 5'4", and, you know, I mean, when outside of pregnancy, I don't weigh over 123 pounds. So, and giving, you know, females credit for the ability to go forward with stuff like that, with the different training, because with scuba diving, you have to be extremely self-reliant. You have to be able to handle certain things, and not saying that there aren't jobs and professions in the different law enforcement realms, but more in reference to the military stuff. And going into page 168, The scuba diving at Aquarina Hot Springs had taken the weekend to complete, and there were a set of 2 to 3 scuba dives per day, 2 days. And after we had, in the class, had completed the time in the classroom in the pool at International Scuba before going out to Aquarina Hot Springs, the classroom work was quite informative of what we learned and the many details of the various aspects, not just of the scuba diving, but of the different levels and some of the parts of the ocean. Of course, you didn't have like a whole kit and caboodle of it because the ocean is so vast. I mean, what is it? 70 to 80% of the earth is covered by water. So got that. And then, some of the fish, I did take specialty courses in reference to that. Um, and then learning that 1 ATM level or atmospheric measurement level equals 33 feet, though I think it's actually 33 meters. I think that one atmospheric measurement is actually 33 meters and not 33 feet. I don't know if it was 33 feet that were taught. I think that's what I was actually taught, but I think it's actually 33 meters for one atmospheric measurement. And so one atmospheric measurement being 33 meters would mean 33 times 3 feet, or 3 point something another feet per, so like almost 100 feet essentially per 8 atmospheric measurement. But even then, because depending on the level of the salt content in the vicinity of, and then not forgetting also the reality of the currents and the waves and other aspects, the atmospheric measurements actually could be varied depending which part of the ocean you are actually in, and then the level of salt content. Not forgetting the aspects of where, because I mean, if you're near a reef, that does affect certain things. I'm sure there are people who could testify that there would be those aspects. Not forgetting the aspects in reference to if it's just off of like, and when I say coral reef, I mean like out, you drop down and there's a bunch of coral at the bottom of the ocean, in comparison to like, you got the Great Barrier Reef off of Australia, and that sort of stuff being different in comparison to the continental shelves for other areas and whatnot like that. So, though my other scuba certification courses went into further detail of different aspects, of course, than the National Geographic Open Water certification, though that had been completed for me by Kevin Murphy, or Kevin W. Murphy, on 1 March 2009. That was my graduation. I have joked about the fact that I have essentially dated and or long-term-ish relationship with someone from each, well, technically now that there is a Space Force, by technicalities there are 2 military branches for the United States of America that I have not dated, but that's only because of the new formation of the Space Force for the United States of America. But I have not dated an actual Marine, though there is there is that he is so cute. I know that I'm not the only person who has crushes or like finds certain individuals attractive, and that Jonathan Joseph Jones. That's he is. He is definitely he is quite. I'm sure that he's intelligent. But that is I call him the cutie patootie marine. I know that's not really all that original, but I have another nickname for him, but I'm not saying that out loud because that is what it is. Now, if I met him and then like really, then that would be, but cutie. He is so cute. So cute. I have crushes on different. I have a crush on Junior. I think he is just. And then there's the cutie patootie Navy SEAL. Oh, that is. Cutie patootie Navy SEAL is the one who killed Bin Laden. That guy is. What is it, Rob O'Neill, something like that. Rob O'Neill. Ooh, he is. Ooh, that's ooh, so. Ooh. And then there's that Senator McCall. He got blue eyes and ooh, and then there's that hot CIA guy. Ooh, I gotta pay attention. Ooh, yeah, ooh, ooh, yeah, ooh, that is just ooh, I'll take one of that and that and mine. Oh, yeah, just, ooh. I gotta breathe. Ooh, that's just, ooh. Yeah, no, it's just, just, ooh, So back to scuba diving. After my National Geographic open water scuba diving certification introductor, yeah. Ooh, I just, ooh, it's just, yeah, that. So there's the first specialty certificate. Really, that one too? Yeah, I forgot that teacher would. This is not fair. Go and get myself all. So there's that specialty diver certification, which was the first one, and I went through the pool classes at International and learned how to do the flips and stuff like that, and turn myself around and follow the bubbles and stuff like that. And the reason why I chose the dry suit certification first in March of 2009 was because, yeah, hot springs. Yeah. False advertisement. Was not hot at all. I mean, it was like lukewarm and then get out and it's cold, and dry suit certification seemed ideal. Plus, the teacher that I had out at Clear Springs Scuba Park in Terrell had asked me, well, why? He was so cute. I had have such a crush on that one. Oh, pun intended, because when you go down in the ocean, there's the compression. So I know 2/3 of a pun. Those who get scuba diving understand that 2/3 for the turnaround. So Patty taught me, not PADI, but PATTI, taught me in the pool about the different aspects and how to take care of the bubble before getting into the water and stuff like that. And then, but yeah, Jeff Davis was my scuba instructor, teacher. And whatchamacallit, he had asked me what my ideal scuba dive would be, that I would want my first specialty certification to be dry suit. And I said, well, because I want to scuba dive during the Aurora Borealis. And he looked at me and he said, what? Oh my God, what did you just say? And he had already known about my head injury on Palm Sunday in 2000 and stuff like that. And we were out at the lake. I'll finish this particular one on that. And so we were out at the Clear Spring Scuba Park. We were getting our gear on, and we had done the first dive. And then afterwards, he was like, so, and we had already talked, obviously, because while getting ready and all that. And he had said, well, why dry suit as your first specialty? Because he found out that I did the 16 specialty course. I said, well, hot springs is not hot. it's warm. It's not hot. It's false advertising. And because I thought that, like, the most beautiful scuba dive that I could imagine would be scuba diving during the Aurora Borealis. To be able to be under the water with all of the, different aquatic life, well, not just the animals, but also the marine floral life that would just be abundant in that area, and being able to be immersed with all of that, and little baby sea lions and walruses just swimming around, and big sea anemones, and the starfish that are huge, and be able to look up in the most clear water of the ocean and be able to see the Aurora Borealis while scuba diving. And he just kind of looked at me and he was like, oh my God, what? And I said, why not? What would be a more beautiful scuba dive than that? And he said, well, most people prefer warm water diving, and since you were complaining about the hot springs not being hot, and I was like, yeah, that's why with the that certification, being able to see that, can you imagine that during a full moon? And then the difference between a full moon and a new moon? Just watching the waves of the different lights just dancing across the sky. I mean, I know I sound a little hippie-ish, but, fine, whatever, not really, but what would be a more beautiful scuba dive? And he was like, most people prefer going to warm water. Yeah, but there are all those clumsy divers that aren't paying attention to stuff. And I don't, I tend to be a little bit weird. I don't deny that. But, what would what is yours? And he was like, well, I never really, I thought about it. I've been to a bunch of places and da-da-da. And I'm like, okay, well, where haven't you been? And he just kind of looked at me and he's like, well, I have not been there. And I was like, yeah. And I doubt there are many people who actually have. I mean, could you imagine just the little bits of ice just slowly, moving along as you look upward and see the way the aurora borealis waves of light just dance across the sky, but you're, submerged, so then the differences that would be as the waves and the current just moved, and then what sounds you would hear in comparison when below the water to above on land, and just seeing the little pieces of ice just here and there moving around, and then, seeing how the sea anemone react, and the starfish, and the other plants that are out there with their different names, how the kelp just moves in the water beyond just the normal waves and everything like that, how the different lights would just bounce off of the leaves as they twist and turn, and the different, fish that would come out, and just could you think of a more beautiful scuba dive? And he just kind of looked at me, he's like, oh my God, no, I can't. And I was like, that's why I want to do dry suit first. Because think of, I mean, you need a dry suit to go in those waters, right? And he's like, yes, you do. And it's like, okay. So, I mean, vulcanized rubber, and then there's going to be some advances and stuff like that. So it'll be warm enough and just be down there, and just, you wouldn't even have to submerge that deep. I would want to. Surprise. But think about how amazing that would be. And he just kind of, so we were gonna go in the lake, but you want another cigarette? I was like, oh sure, okay. So can you tell me some more about what that would look like? And so yeah, I thought that would be a really cool scuba dive. Just being able to see that sort of stuff. I mean, not that I've seen the aurora borealis, in that vicinity, but I just thought that would be, like, when thinking of an ultimate scuba dive, the ultimate, dream dive. And he was just like, oh my God, like, I never really thought about, like, being down and looking up. And I was like, yeah. I mean, I'm sure at some point I'll be in the lake. One of the certifications is night diving. And I actually did. It wound up working out perfectly. During my night scuba dive, it was the night of either a waxing gibbous moon or a full moon. And I was down at the bottom of Clear Springs Water Park and looked up, aimed the camera, took a picture, and got and when I get to it in the different volumes, you'll be able to see that there is a slight difference, but not by much. But it is those tiny little minute differences that change it. And so, you guys have a good one.